Here we go. So good afternoon, ladies, and welcome to this Lunch and Learn. I really want to thank Yolanda and Wynn for asking me to speak today, and I'm really excited to share some information. So whether you're happily married, you're separated, you're divorced, or you never took that walk down the aisle, I'm hoping that you can take something away, some little bit of information that's relevant for you. You know, I'm a mom. I'm divorced and I raised my son as a single parent. My son is an awesome human being. He's in a loving relationship. He's given me two spectacular grandsons and one really energetic, independent 1-year-old granddaughter. um, I came to my career path much later in life. I was a very non-traditional student, and my son and I graduated together in 2000, I from law school and he from high school. So that was a lot of fun. We were down that education journey together and still love to live and learn a lot of things together. So what is family law? For me, it's really, in my practice, it's a combination of domestic relations court, juvenile court, and probate court concerning various family-related matters. In domestic relations court, there's a whole lot of matters that I deal with relating to divorce, dissolution, legal separation, parenting and custody issues, child support issues, spousal support, property division, such as real estate and retirement plans. In juvenile court, I deal with matters between unwed parents concerning establishing parenting rights, parenting plans, child support, and some grandparent or third-party custody or visitation. And then in probate court, I deal with a lot of guardianships for minor children, and I've done a couple step-parent adoptions or defending step-parent adoptions on the other side of the fact where biological doesn't want to give it up. In any family matter, you know, the health and safety of you and your family is of utmost concern to you. It's also of concern to myself and to the court system. When you're unhappy in a relationship, you've probably, you know, done so many things already to try to improve it. You've had conversations with your spouse about improving the relationship. You maybe have seen a counselor or a therapist or a religious leader of some sort, a priest, a rabbi. You may have stepped outside of your marriage in order to feel loved and to feel that love and some passion in your life again. You know, you may be at a point where you're frustrated, you're anxious, you're stressed. Nothing has worked. Nothing. And everything about your relationship is toxic. It's time for it to end. So what do I do? What do you do? Where do you go? I want to share with you today about 10 things that I want you to know when you're thinking about untying that knot. Things that you can do to protect you and your family. So while most of what I'm going to be discussing today concerns a divorce or dissolution situation, there's going to be some overlap that I will apply to matters between unwed parents and other types of custody situations. I'm gonna take out a lot of legalese. I'm not gonna discuss a whole lot that goes down that path, but if you have specific questions that you'd like to answer, I could try to, you know, give those a shot afterwards. So, you know, just put them in the go ahead and put them in the chat. So there's a whole host of reasons why. Let's see, I'm trying to push my screen ahead. Hold on, there we go. There's a whole lot of reasons on why your relationship is ending. Okay, there's, you know, infidelity, there's lack of equality, there's lack of communication, lack of intimacy, abuse, unrealistic expectations. But a big one that we're going to talk about is money. Money. That's not what I see. Where is, I'm sorry, my slides are not acting. Okay, we're going to keep going. at any rate. So the first of 3 topics, here we go. I guess I have to go, I have to push the backward button. Sorry about that. First of the 3, they all have to do with money. You need to organize your finances. You need to do some debt analysis. You need to know what your expenses are. These kind of topics are extremely important for every woman, for everybody. Why? Because as Yolanda always tells us, and she's reminding us that by 2030, which is just 10 years away, women are going to control a majority of the wealth in the United States. So right now there's a wealth shift that's starting to happen with the baby boomer generation. And in 2/3 of these households, assets are currently being held jointly by both husband and wife, but the key financial decision makers are still mostly the husband. And because women are generally outliving men in a marital relationship, as these men pass, these baby boomers, the baby boomer women are going to be taking control of all of these assets. And from my understanding, it's like $30 million in assets. Also, there's been a significant kind of increase in the younger woman in corporate America. So these women are much more financially savvy. And when they're married, they're the ones who are making the financial and investment decisions. So how many of you guys had any type of discussions on money before with your soon-to-be spouse before you got married? You know, it's not very romantic. I see at least one hand. I'm not seeing a whole lot. Oops, that's not what I wanted. It's not really romantic, but it's important to kind of establish some realistic expectations in all these areas. So whether you've been married for 1 month or 30 years, you're contemplating marriage, there's a number of financial issues that you need to discuss. And 2 of the big ones for me is whether to have a joint or separate account, and discussing and actually knowing what your whole financial picture looks like. So first, I recommend that you have 1 joint account and 2 separate accounts. The joint account, you can have money in there that's going to provide for your family's financial expenses and your long-term goals. Then you each have an individual account that's going to give each of you some type of freedom to make purchases without having to consult the other one. And I believe that it's really important for women to always have an individual banking account, a checking account, a savings account, whichever you want, for your own independence. And it's important when you're staring down a bad relationship and contemplating a divorce action or dissolution, to make sure that you have something of your own established. Second, it's really important to know what your financial picture looks like. Your assets and debts. Take an inventory. This is the debt analysis. Take an inventory of your assets and debts. Write it down on a piece of paper, put it on a spreadsheet. You know, if you know Excel, just plug in numbers on Excel. You know, and you need to talk about how your assets are going to be held. Are they going to be held jointly? Are they going to be held individually? What can be held jointly? What is individual? You need to put down all types of things: houses, automobiles, savings, retirement, credit cards, student loans, what your income is, and your average monthly expenses. Put all that in to your debt analysis and know what your big picture looks like. And I highly, highly recommend, you know, talking to at least 3 people, and that's a financial planner, an estate planning attorney, and an accountant. A financial plan is going to help you in both your marital life and, you know, looking at a divorce situation. All these individuals are going to help you in these situations. And I have individuals I recommend frequently to my clients. I also have divorce counselors available that I recommend to my, they do some financial planning from just a divorce standpoint. And the estate planning attorney is going to know how you need to title your assets. If you need a trust, what you need to do. And the accountant, of course, is going to take care of all your tax stuff. So next, you want to look at your expenses, or excuse me, your debt, as part of your debt analysis. You know, do you have a current credit report for yourself, your spouse? Is there something on your credit report that you didn't know about, and it's dinging your credit? You didn't even realize it was there. You know, when's the last time you did a credit report? Know what your outstanding debts are: your auto loans, your credit cards, your student loans, your mortgage balance, your second mortgage. You know, to look at all of that. How much is owed? Is there equity in your marital home? Can you afford the mortgage payment with your income? And in taking a look at this is, you know, part of what I'm going to be doing when I'm sitting down with you, is taking a look at what your finances are and how that picture is going to look in separating it all. So when you know what your assets and debts look like, then take a look at what your expenses are. I do help out, you know, I can give you a worksheet that is a PDF driven worksheet that helps you figure out where your money goes each month. It helps you detail all your expenses out each month. Because it's going to be important to figure out what your exit plan is going to look like. Where are you going to live? Who's going to take on what debt? Will you be able to get spousal support? Will you be getting child support? There's a host of issues that I do sit down with my clients to discuss. And it surprises me how many women don't even have their own bank account. They don't have a savings account or a checking account in their own name. And they really have no idea how their assets are titled, how their house is titled, and where to find that information. And particularly automobiles. I mean, who's got control of the automobiles? Are they in one person's name? Are they jointly? Do you have a lease? Does the car you drive, is your car leased under your husband's name? If it is, we've got a real issue, because guess what? You can't refinance that into your own name. And the liability that you could face down the road, if you've got a 3-year lease and you've got 2 more years left on it, that's a liability situation that no one's really going to want to take on. And it's very difficult. We've got to sit down and figure out all of this financial money information. You know, it's one of the most stressful things, divorce, that's going to happen in your life, and it financially impacts both you and your spouse. So, you know, you're separating one household and figuring out how to conduct your own household with just the one income. So taking control and knowing all of your finances at the onset of your marriage is going to help you find some control and peace of mind when that relationship is going awry and you need to start planning on how to untie the knot. The next 2 things I want to discuss are finding an attorney and the goals and expectations that you need to relate to your attorney. First of all, do you even need one? Do you need one? There are many people that feel that they don't need an attorney, and they do not get one, and sometimes those situations really end up to be a very difficult matter for a court to deal with. So there's going to be really few limited and uncomplicated situations where you don't need an attorney. You know, if you have minor children, if you have a business, if you have real property, if you have assets, debts, retirement funds, if you want to find out if you're entitled to spousal support, you really need to hire an attorney. And how do you do that? You've got to find one. You've got to find somebody you trust. This is a hugely vulnerable time for you. And you have to be able to share some really private and personal concerns with your attorney. You have to feel comfortable doing that. You have to find someone who's experienced in domestic relations matters. So you don't want to hire, a real estate attorney or a criminal law attorney if that's the only area they practice in. You want to hire somebody who is familiar with domestic relations laws, and who you are comfortable and confident will listen to you and guide you through the process. You don't have to hire the first attorney you meet. You can interview attorneys. Sometimes you may have to pay a consultation fee, but if you get the name of a couple of attorneys, you can always, meet with them for a half hour, 45 minutes, an hour, and talk to them. See if that's the person that is right for you. And if you don't, ask, you can always call the Cleveland Bar Association. They have a referral service. They can refer you to a number of attorneys, whether you want a female attorney, a male attorney, an attorney who speaks Spanish. They have a whole host of referrals in the areas that they practice in. And once you have an attorney, you don't always have to keep that attorney. I'm just saying, there could be reasons that maybe that attorney, and you're no longer seeing eye to eye on a situation. It doesn't mean that you have to keep that attorney. You can always fire the attorney, and then unfortunately you've got to start all over, but for your own, I guess, peace of mind, it's probably better to leave that attorney relationship and start with something else. One thing that you do want to do with your attorney is set some realistic goals and expectations. So it's a process. It really is. Going through a divorce or dissolution or any kind of custody situation, whether it's unwed parents or guardianship, it's a process and it takes a while to get through. So I personally know that you are in a vulnerable, stressed, and anxious state of mind. And when I sit down and explain something to you and I tell you how things work and how the court systems work and how this is going to work and blah, 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 we go through all this and I see this deer in a headlight look coming across, my desk from me, and I say, hey, look, don't worry about it. This is a process. Each step of the way, I'm going to re-explain it and we're going to talk about it. So don't feel you have to know everything now and do everything now. This is definitely going to, it's going to take a while. We'll get through it together. I need to know what your goals are and what you want, what areas that you're willing to compromise in. And then I'll let you know how realistic your goals are. I cannot guarantee that I'm going to get you everything that you want, but I will analyze all of the facts and your goals and come up with some creative solution within the law to keep those expectations real for you. Because one size doesn't fit all. Every marital relationship is totally different and unique as to all the personalities involved and what's going on, your income, whether you have children or not, how long you've been married, your finances, whether you've worked outside of the marital home. There's a host of situations that are so unique to your relationship. So it's not always a great idea to listen to your extremely well-meaning friends and family members on what your personal expectations and goals should be, because every situation, at least from a court standpoint and my standpoint, it needs to be looked at on a case-by-case basis. There's no cookie-cutter divorce or custody arrangement. Finally, as far as goals and expectations, something I do is I make sure that everything that is supposed to be done is done when your divorce is granted and finalized. A few years back, I had a client who came to me, and she had a divorce decree from 1990, and there was no order that divided the retirement assets that they, husband and wife, had agreed to in their separation agreement. Her ex-husband had retired, and she didn't know why that she wasn't getting the money that she was due from the retirement plan. So, you know what, she hired me. I found out, I mean, there was no qualified domestic relations order dividing the retirement plan. This particular order needs to be completed after the divorce entry, after things are finalized. And that was never done. It was never completed. And I make sure that we get everything completed before I let you go, because I'm not going to let you walk out the door with something hanging in the air that you're going to have to deal with 20 or 25 years later, or even 10 years later. You don't want to have to deal with it for the most part. It's not, you know, your divorce is order. You're moving on with your life, and you've got a whole new chapter already written. So you want nothing hanging. The next issue I want to talk about, it happens to be about your actions and your reactions. You know, first and foremost, it's all about the kiddos. When you have kids, you know, everything is about them. Divorce is really no different, whether it's an amicable situation or you're fighting tooth and nail over everything. It's still traumatic on these little guys or on the big guys. And when you're in a divorce situation or a custody situation, the court wants to hear about the kids. They don't care, you know, who's doing what to the other party, blah, blah, blah. They want to hear what's happening with those kiddos first, you know. And I do want to say every child deals with divorce differently. So you know your kids, you are their biggest cheerleader. What do your children need? You need to relay those things to me. You also need to be able to ease their trauma and keep them positive. So if they're having difficulty, I like to talk to my clients about what type of difficulty is happening in the household, because that also helps me craft a really good parenting plan for you and maybe make some suggestions that would work for you. Do you guys need therapy? Is there something going on? Is there a toxic environment, and your son or your daughter are not dealing well? Do they need a talking doctor? I call it a talking doctor because it's a good thing that they're able to go someplace, a safe space to talk about, and to also get maybe some coping mechanisms or situational therapies that can help them through the divorce action. You know, do you need more or less visitation with a parent? You know, are we looking at a shared custody arrangement? Or do we need supervised visitation? You know, is there some trauma going on because we need more or less visitation? These kiddos also need the ability to maintain relationships with extended family, so grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins. Even if their parent may be toxic, maybe their grandparents aren't. Their grandparents are the most loving, wonderful people, and they need to see their grandparents frequently. You know, make arrangements, do what you have to do to let those kiddos see their grandparents. So one of the things that we look at is developing a parenting plan, and a parenting plan replaces what used to be called a visitation or custody agreement. So when you're developing your parenting plan, you want to think about where your child's going to be living the majority of the time. You want to think about a parenting schedule. Who's going to have what times and when? What school district is your child going to go to? Are we going to look at child support? What kind of expenses do we need to have as maybe shared expenses, such as childcare? Do we have a large childcare expense that's happening. Cell phones for your kids, medical insurance, who's going to be providing the healthcare insurance, and how are you going to divvy up any type of medical expenses that aren't paid for by the insurance. In Ohio, there's 3 different types of custody arrangements that we can talk about. The first, or parenting time, the first is a sole residential custody arrangement, and that's where one parent has sole responsibility for the care and decision making for the child or all of the children, and no other parent has any type of decision making capabilities. They may have some visitation time or parenting time with the other parent that may be alternating weekends or one evening during the week or something like that, but there is one parent who is primarily responsible for the care and custody of the child. Next, we get into a shared parenting arrangement. Shared parenting does not really mean 50-50. It can mean 50-50. What it means is that both parents are the residential parent when that child is in their possession. It means that both parents participate in decision making, such as where their kids are gonna go to school, where they're gonna attend childcare, summer camp, who are gonna be their physicians and dentists, and what sports are they gonna participate in, or other kind of extracurricular activities. So there's a host of things that both parents, as if you were still together, you're co-parenting, and you're making those types of decisions together. Your parenting time, you want to think about creating a parenting plan that works for the entire family. Is it going to be a 50-50 relationship? Which sometimes that really works for some parents because they live very close to each other. They co-parent really well. They got along really well. They feel, each feels the other is an excellent parent, and it just didn't get along anymore. They did not get along, and they knew that they were better off being separate than together. And sometimes those absolute 50-50 relationships work. Other time, a shared parenting plan may be alternating weekends and 1 or 2 nights during the week, or it could be alternating weekends and 1 or 2 weekday visits, not necessarily spending the night during the week. Maybe dad has, I was speaking with somebody recently, and dad's a truck driver. So mom has the kids Monday through Thursday, and dad's going to have them Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and that works for them. It's all about what is really going to work for your family. There's also one more type of custody arrangement, and it's not used very often, but it's called split parenting, and it's where when you have 2 or more children, and one parent may be the sole residential caregiver for one of the children, and then mom has one, the other parent has 1 or 2 of the other children. And it doesn't happen very often, but in very select, I would say it really would be a unique situation where that would apply, and the court would say, oh, okay, that's a great idea, because they want to make sure, they want to keep those kids together. I mean, even when it's their birthdays, my parenting plan says, if it's your turn to have Jane for a birthday celebration, then the other child, if there's 2 children, the other child is always going to be at that birthday celebration. So they want the siblings to be sharing in everything that's happening with the other sibling. Our next discussion is, the think before you act at the bottom there. Thinking before you act. Have you ever said something to someone that you wish you never did? Once those words come out, boy, they can't be taken back. Hurtful things can come back to bite you regarding a custody, a visitation, or a spousal support even. When you're in litigation, you are under a microscope. When you're going through divorce, when you're going through a custody issue, you are under a microscope. And whenever you're writing anything, whether it's a text, an email, a letter, anything on social media, Twitter, Facebook, whatever other social media accounts you have, keep this phrase in mind. What would the judge think when she reads this? If you don't think a judge is going to approve, then you hit delete, 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 delete. Don't say it. Because anything you put in writing, can and will be used against you. Don't badmouth your ex or soon to be ex. It's just not worth it. Don't discuss the details of your divorce or custody situation on social media. It's not worth it. Our next one, now we talked a lot about the kids. It's about you too. During this process, you can't forget about yourself. We've talked a ton about self-care during COVID, and it's something that I do talk about, and as I've always talked about with my clients, is it's so crucial when you're going through this type of stressful situation, whatever it is, to indulge yourself and give yourself a break occasionally. Also, sometimes you really need to give your friends and your family members a break too. If you are going through something that's tremendously stressful for you, your friends and family, they could get burned out on listening to the same thing over and over and over. And a lot of times I recommend a counselor, that you find a counselor to find some other healthy coping skills besides just talking to a friend or family member, or drinking a bottle of wine a night. Hey, there's nothing wrong with glass, but let's not drink the whole bottle every single night, because it's not going to get you it's not going to get you any farther ahead. But remember to do some small things for yourself: a mani-pedi, a massage, a bubble bath with a glass of wine, which is one of my favorites. Exercising or starting an exercise regime. Go to the park or a coffee shop and read a book. One other thing that I highly recommend is writing in a journal. Write in a journal, and I've done this. I can't tell you how many times I've done this. Write in a journal, and when you feel it's a good time period has passed, you light that baby on fire. Light that baby on fire. Burn it. Let all of that negativity go, because you need to be in a better, more positive space. And that's where you want to. Now on to number 9, turning the negative into a positive. Does your religion look negatively on divorce? Do your family or friends look negatively on divorce? Do you feel like a failure because you didn't fix the problem, or you didn't fix your spouse? You can't beat yourself up over these types of things. Sometimes you're just not with the right person. And sometimes there's people change because of all kinds of other factors in their life. The death of someone close, medical issues, job changes. There's a host of issues that can change the inner being of how you felt 10 years ago when you were married to that person. And now that no longer exists. So you can't beat yourself up about it, and you have to turn all of that negative into a positive, because divorce can really be a transformation for you. It can free you from all the negativity in your marriage, that stress, that uncertainty, that frustration. It can also free your children from the negativity in your marriage. And so instead of being that kind of dried up plant in some dried up soil, you can blossom into a beautiful person, a beautiful flower, because you've had all this nurturing environment and nurturing soil around you. So remember to, do what you can. Do what you can for yourself. And last, patience is a virtue. You need to take control of this new chapter in your life. Divorce is a process. We've talked about that. It can take months, or custody arrangements, whatever it is. It can take months or years. and there's after effects. So it's not just going to be, oh yeah, well, once I get divorced, once I reach that divorce date, um, everything's going to be great and fine and dandy. Well, you know, there's still after effects. There's still feelings that come up. There's still all of this that you have to work through from an emotional standpoint. So there's after effects. So you need to be patient with yourself, patient with the process. You know, here's where it's been really difficult even for attorneys during the past 6-7 months because of COVID. It's been very frustrating for many divorce actions. We were at a practical standstill in the court systems for about 6 weeks. I mean, everybody just, I've never seen anything like it in my life. Everything just halted. And courts are now trying to push their dockets along. They're doing a lot of telephone conferences. They're doing Zoom video hearings, and they are doing some in-person hearings as well. They are making sure that people feel safe and protected if they want to come in for an in-person hearing. They are making sure that if somebody is compromised, you know, you have to share that with them, and their hearing will definitely be either by telephone or by Zoom. So, you know, the courts are trying to assist now and really helping press through some divorces and dissolutions and custody issues, because, you know, parents and spouses there, everybody was losing some patience there with them, because the next thing I want to talk about is your identity. If your identity has been solely devoted to your marriage, it's really time to redefine that and to redefine you as an individual. You know, so like I talked about in the self-help and you know, turning your negatives into positive, it's time for that kind of self-exploration, to try something new, to take a class, to write in a journal, to take a walk, to put a vision board together, to do something that's going to redefine this new chapter of your life and you. You know, I want you to keep in mind that just a couple other things, you know, agreeing to issues, agreeing to things, agreeing to a written agreement is not a defeat. It is important to find agreement and some middle ground that works for you and your family. Ongoing conflict can really hurt you and your children when it's over a long period of time. And there's also a financial impact concerning the cost of prolonged litigation. There's stress involved. There's additional counseling involved, perhaps. You know, there is the fact that, do you really want to judge deciding how your finances are going to be distributed, or how often you're going to get to see your child? In most situations, no, you do not. You do not want to have to fight over how often you get to see your child. It's not a productive way to end a relationship or start a new one. So agreeing to issues does not necessarily mean a defeat. You know, what I do, or I hope I provide, is to empower my clients and help them navigate through this really stressful time, whatever the situation is, to provide some really good sound advice, to set some realistic goals, and to make you feel invested and taking control of this new chapter of your life. So I don't know if anybody has any questions right now. I think we're really close to our time.